Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Okay, I'm going to attempt to do a voice note here from Dixon's Bar in the Matthew Harding upper stand straight after the game. I'll keep it short because my voice isn't great, as you can hear. It's very noisy as well. Oh, that was the longest 7 minutes that ended up being nearly 9 minutes of my life, I think, in injury time. What can you say about that game? We'll talk more about it. The first 45 minutes was so bad. The first 25 minutes might be one of the worst we played all season, certainly at home. We looked so passive. It was bizarre, the way we were playing. We looked nervous. Be very interested to hear what Marc has to say after the game. It was bizarre. But wow. Second half, I mean, I was crying out for changes at half time. We didn't make any, but we were much, much, much better. And that said, 20 minutes to go, whatever it was, we didn't look like scoring. And it was that man, Cucurella, again, who's getting hugged on the pitch, watching on the TV screens now. What a moment for him. He's done it time and time again this season, arriving late in the box. Another massive goal from him. Have you seen a greater redemption arc of a player at Chelsea? I can't think of one. And what a huge win it is for this season, obviously, for this group of players, definitely, and for this era of Chelsea, maybe. Getting Champions League feels really important, doesn't it? And that is massive. Gonna have to come up with a different solution when we go to Forest, because not a lot worked, but winning that way does feel amazing. And it's what you do it for, isn't it? It's why you love the team. It's why you want to support the team and watch these games, because when you do come on the right end of the result, even in a terrible game like that, you bloody love it. So yeah, more to come, but what a relief.
We are on such a fine line between this season being relatively successful or a complete write-off. And to be honest, Chris and I sat there through the game tonight. We were right in our predictions when we said we thought it'd be a cagey game, wouldn't be a lot of goals in it, and we were proved right. And I have to say, watching the match was difficult. I don't think we've seen a Chelsea team play that badly for many, many years. You could argue the Brighton game earlier in the season where we never showed up. You could probably throw that one in the bucket too. But this, on a night when we needed to come out, show purpose, show pace, show skill, show some spirit and heart, quite frankly, it just wasn't on display. The support, for when Chelsea had the ball at the back in the first half in particular, and Sanchez was fanning around, and the back 3 or 4 didn't know what the bloody hell to do with it. It was so uncomfortable to watch. It was like the Ipswich game all over again, but actually a lot worse. Sanchez passing the ball out for throw-ins, kicking the ball to nobody, and then you can say any of the back 4. Reece James was awful. Tosin, I didn't get that selection at all. Chalabar coming out of the game when he was just building a really good partnership with Colwill, then throwing Tosin in, much like Marc did against Ipswich as well, and that partnership never worked on that day as well. And I think for me, that was a massive error. I don't know what's wrong with Chalabar. Maybe he was ill. Maybe we'll find out afterwards. I don't know. But if it's just for giving Tosin some minutes, I don't agree with that at all. Cucurella was probably our best player in the first half, but that wasn't difficult. And even he wasn't great. He pressed a little bit more than most. He won a few tackles, but name a player: Palmer, George, Neto, Madueke, Sado, nobody did anything. And our passing, I hate to say it, was just completely atrocious. And we've won the game, and I'm moaning a lot. And people are going to probably say, oh, why are you moaning? We won, whatever. I'm sorry, if you were at the game tonight or you watched that on TV, if you think that we played decently well in any facet of the game, then you need your eyes tested. That was bad, rank bad. And I want to come here and say, you know, we did this and we did that well, but we just didn't. George was so isolated up the middle. Neto was playing as far right as you could possibly imagine, and Madueke exactly the same on the left-hand side. They were probably 50 yards away from George at any given moment. So whenever the ball went to George, which was basically never anyway, I'm not even sure he touched the ball in the first half, there was no support for him. And Harry Maguire's job all night long was so easy. George just played in front of him. He never made any runs. He's not a natural centre forward or striker. And it was painful. It was painful. And we had to sit through this for 80 minutes. Maresca never made a substitution until I think 79 and a half minutes was the first time a player came on. It never worked. The system was bloody dreadful. And bar a Reece James bit of magic for the cross, a little bit of skill and a fantastic dink out for the on-running Cucurella, we were never going to win that game. We could have played, the old saying, we could have played all night and all day and never scored a goal. Well, that's exactly how it played out. However, that bit of magic from Reece and a fantastic header from Cucurella, that was like Didier Drogba levels. Bullet into the top corner. Fair play to him for you know, Chris, you said this in the ground, what a redemption story it is for him. You know, from the struggles of his child and you know, some personal issues last season, and obviously his form dropped off a cliff, to suddenly now showing this level of form in the tough moments to win a game of football like that and give Chelsea a chance at least getting those Champions League spots is incredible. He was the only one for me that came out of any credit. I thought Noni, again, fairly non-existent. I think he ran at the defender twice in the second half. One was quite late on, one was early in the second, one was early after the break. Didn't really cause him any problems. Obviously, he got put through by Palmer for his shot that he flailed wide. I mean, he just has to hit the target. I mean, I was saying to Chris in the ground, the amount of stock that players don't seem to put on hitting the target anymore. Just get a good strike at Onana there, even if it's fairly central, get a good strike at him, it's probably going to go in. But no, we try for these top corner, you know, fancy sort of side foot shots, and quite frankly, it's just really poor. Neto's work rate was much better in the second half. I mean, he never touched the ball in the first half. And Caicedo was much better when Lavia came on, even for 10 or 15 minutes near the end. You know, he pressed like mad. And yeah, it's difficult when you win 1-0 and you've gone back to fifth position and you feel like everything went well tonight. But it was, so if you didn't watch the game and you just seen the box score, Chelsea 1, Manchester United 0, you would have thought, okay, they've done okay. But frankly, if we play like that against Nottingham Forest or Real Betis, we're going to get our asses handed to us. And there's no question in my mind that whatever formation, whatever system, however he wanted to play tonight, it did not work. Forget the final score. United could have scored 2 or 3 goals before we did. Mount had a very good chance in the second half. They had a goal disallowed, which was a hair offside, which, you know, on another day is given. And quite frankly, they looked the side that was going to win the game. And yeah, it was worrying. Chris and I were very, very, very worried. We just could not see that goal coming. And I think what we will say, and Chris might be a lot more proactive, or certainly positive, I should say, in his voice note, but once we did score the goal, at the very least, the passing became crisper. We started wanting the ball a little bit more. We didn't get there many opportunities until the last sort of couple of minutes of injury time when they threw the ball in the box once or twice. But yeah, it was a concern. We were both pleased that Fernandes left the field with about 10 or 15 minutes to go, because it felt that he was going to be the one that was going to cause us some problems near the end if they got a free kick or just generally get the ball further up the field. He's got that little bit of magic to create something, and when he left the field, it was quite nice. But overall, Chelsea tonight are basically very, very lucky. Maresca was all at sea. He didn't seem to know what to do tactically. Completely inept. I'm sorry. I've tried to defend Maresca as best as possible. I want Chelsea to succeed with a manager that's at the club longer than 6 months or a year. I really, really do. There's so many fans that are pushing this get rid of him, get rid of him. I really want him to do well. I want someone to do well at this club. But that tonight was absolutely abhorrent. The hardest watch I've in a live game I've seen for a long, long time. And he'll come on tonight and say we won the game and didn't Cucurella do well, or I don't know. He'll come up with some bullshit. He has got to call some stuff out, man. That wasn't good. The boos in the ground in the first half was really, really bad. It was loud, really loud. And it all stems from him. It's his formation, it's his system, it's his style of play, and it did not work. He never once tweaked anything. We're sitting there after half an hour, Chris and I, saying he's got to move Neto and Madueke over. He could just stick George on the right, put Neto up front, put Madueke up front, put, whatever. Do something. We just did the same thing over and over and over again, and it didn't work. And it saddens me that we had no backup plan. We got out of jail tonight, and I really hope they've got a week now to look at the Nottingham Forest game and come up with a different plan, because if we play like that against them, we're going to get caned, basically. I don't see us beating them playing like that. They're a much better side than Man United. Even though they're on a bad run, I think the only thing going for us is that they'll be quite nervous too. And we mentioned this in the game to each other, is that United had nothing to play for. So, 1-0 loss, 2-0 loss, or whatever tonight. They've given the fans something. They tried. They didn't get beat 5-6-0 like I think everyone thought they were going to. And Forest won't do that. They'll be nervous like us, and if they go a goal behind, they might struggle a little bit too. The fans might get, a little bit raucous and a little bit nervous. But I just think we've got to do something better than we did tonight. We can't keep doing that. The definition of insanity, hoping for a different result, doing the same thing over and over and over again. But look, I'm sorry for being negative. I don't want to be negative tonight. I wanted to come on here and be positive about everything, but it had to be said. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good watch. We didn't play well. But, and it's a big, big but, we did get the victory, and we have kept our season alive. At least we go into the game at the weekend with a chance of securing Champions League football before Real Betis in the final on the Wednesday. So at least the players got over the line.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. And now, back to the show.
So it's the morning after the night before, and that chance for a little bit of reflection. I stand by what I said about the game. It was poor, and I thought the players were poor. To a man, I didn't think anybody played very well. There were some good moments. I think we can call that out. Reece James's bit of skill and his cross. Reece James's shot that cannons off the post. Cucurella's fantastic header. There were moments. Caicedo pressed much better in the second half, but overall it wasn't a very good game. The wingers weren't very effective. The midfield wasn't very effective, and the defence didn't play very well. The goalkeeper didn't have a lot to do, and what he did do was a little bit scruffy at times on the ball. Sanchez in his hands was fine, I suppose, but playing out from the back, we looked very disorganised. No one seemed to know, like I said in my voice note yesterday, no one seemed to know what to do when we had a dead ball situation at the back. It was like, do you want it or shall I have it? These are things that should be already planned out. Very, very strange, but what it does do for the club and the team with a win is give us that chance to go to Nottingham Forest next week and secure Champions League football on our own terms, and not have to wait for anybody else to slip up. And if they do make it, it's huge for the club. Financially, it's massive. It means we can attract better players, pay bigger wages, potentially get a really good sponsor on the shirt, all those things. Plus, obviously, we're going to be playing in the elite competition. And however we fare in that, the fact that we'll be playing against the Juventuses and the PSGs and the Barcelonas, etc., It's huge. We don't want to be playing against FC Noah and Legia Warsaw. I mean, it's just not where we should be. And thought that, in fairness to the players, they did understand that. When they came out for the second half, they had a big huddle in the middle of the field. They knew the importance of that game. They were under pressure. And I suppose you could look at it two ways. You could say they got the job done, so what does it matter? Equally, you could look at it and say it's their first really pressurised game of the season, like really under pressure. And they really were nervous. They were so nervous. The passing was off. I say that the patterns of play weren't there. The George experiment wasn't great. And Maresca's come out and said that he thought it worked, and George could possibly still do that role against Nottingham Forest. And I've got to be honest with you, it wasn't a good look. And I think that does need an adjustment. I'll be shocked if George plays up front on his own against Nottingham Forest, against their two big burly centre-backs. That will be strange to me, but Maresca does strange things at times. I think what didn't come across last night was that I was absolutely delighted that we won. Of course I was. The epitome of a team that can go anywhere, home or away, not play very well and win, is a sign. It's always been a sign of a good side. Liverpool have done it many times this season. They've gone away to somewhere and won 1-0 or 2-1. For example, the Leicester game very recently. They played Leicester away, basically to win the league title, more or less. And they didn't play great in the day. They had a few chances, but they sort of dug out a 1-0 victory. And that's what you have to do. Now, I don't think Chelsea are there yet. I don't think we're at a stage where we're Jose Mourinho-esque teams where, we would go to Middlesbrough on a Wednesday night and pick up a horrible 2-1 victory in the rain, having played terribly. I don't think that team or this team is at that level. But what I would say is I'm hoping, like I said before the Newcastle game, it would have given us some confidence going into the last game of the season now. And they have won, I think it's 6 out of 7 Premier League matches. Now, they've not all been fantastic watches, I've got to say, but they are winning. And I do want to see a winning side. And it's just, I suppose, small building blocks. It's not something that we haven't tasted a lot of success recently. And I just think this Nottingham Forest game is so huge. And in a weird way, I'm not sure if I want Forest to actually win against West Ham this weekend, or whether I want them to be completely out of it. Because if they win and they're playing us on the last day, I think they're going to be quite nervous against us. They'll realise they've got a chance of getting into the Champions League, and I think that might make them a little bit edgy. If they lose this weekend or draw and it knocks them out of that situation, I wonder if they'll play with a bit more freedom, strangely. What do you think, Chris? Would you want Forest to be completely knocked out of this, or go into the last day with a chance of securing Champions League football? It's a good question, I think, that actually.
And just lastly, I think I may have knocked Maresca for the George experiment. Didn't quite come off. I think he should have changed it sooner. I think he should have rotated Neto or Madueke up to that middle position and maybe given George his favourite position out wide. But I'll never knock him for starting an academy player. What I would say, and maybe this is a bit difficult at the moment because there's a really important game on it, but that Anwi that we've got that plays on the right, he came on against Djurgården the other day. He is unbelievably talented, like really, really good. And you just feel like he's a bit of a wild card. And he was someone I would have loved to have seen on the bench yesterday, because me and Chris discussed this. The bench was so defensive, like hold midfield players and defenders, basically. There wasn't a lot of action that could have come on. If we needed a goal, we were like, where's it going to come from off the bench? Because there wasn't anybody. Why not chuck that kid on and give him 15 minutes? Because if we need a goal against Nottingham Forest, he will go past somebody and he will create something. And if for some reason it came down to a boy like that creating a goal, or maybe the assist before the assist, in a really good Chelsea move, and it proved to be a winner against Forest. What a career-defining moment that is for him. And as supporters, we would absolutely love that. So I dare Maresca that don't put 2 goalkeepers on the bench. Don't put a whole host of defenders and midfield players, like holding midfield players. Please put at least Anwi on the bench to give us an opportunity to replace someone with a little bit of dynamism and skill, because he is some player for the future, I think. But yeah, really pleased to win. I look forward to your response, Chris, and we can enjoy our week now and not have to worry about other results, because we at least got the business done yesterday.
Winning a Friday night game, waking up Saturday morning, and just weekends sort of made, isn't it, by that? So, again, what a relief. Right, where do I start? I'll start by answering your question about Forest, Joe. For me, it's quite easy, actually. I think we want Forest to be out of it when we play them. Not some. I get what you're saying from the players front. I think that's very fair in terms of the team setup. But I just think the atmosphere will be so different, and I think it'd be quite difficult if we go to the City ground and they are, right in it. Then, I mean, they've had some really good results at the City ground this year. Obviously, their form at the moment hasn't been great, but they've beaten Man City at home, United, many others along the way. And I think that you'd much rather be going there with that end of season feel where they're kind of like, we've got European football. That's still a great achievement, and they're not necessarily in it. I think if they draw at West Ham, then it means that they'd have to beat Chelsea 5-0. So maybe that's the perfect kind of outcome for us going into the game, because it means that realistically they're not going to be in it, but they're still going to have to play fairly open maybe. But yeah, that would be my view on it. I don't think well, number one, we can't ask for any more than it to be in our hands. That's absolutely the case. I also don't think it's an absolute shoe-in that Villa necessarily win at Man United. Villa have really been grinding out these results, and I think if United were to beat Spurs in the week in the final, Old Trafford's then suddenly bouncing, and they could give Villa a game. So lots to play for, but all we can ask for is that it's in our own hands. So much to talk about around the game itself. So trying to think where to start, really. I think completely agree with you, Joe. Sort of first and foremost, that we really didn't play well. I thought the first half an hour we were dreadful, like really, really bad, and we looked so nervous. I can't remember seeing Chelsea play at home looking like that. And as you say, we were talking to each other, obviously throughout, just being like, what are we seeing here? Everyone looked so bereft of ideas, and it was shocking, to be fair. I thought that moment when the Maguire's goal was obviously disallowed for the very close offside was absolutely pivotal, because I don't think Chelsea would have come back to win the game. I think we might well have nicked a point, but the first goal felt so important yesterday, and I think that really would have knocked us. And actually what happened after that was it woke us up a little bit, and we actually started to play our best football after that in the first half. And then obviously second half, to be fair, we came out and played very well. I thought I was screaming really about Maresca not making any changes, and obviously we didn't have much on the bench. The obvious one for me was to bring Lavia on. I still don't know why he didn't come on the pitch earlier, but it was more, like you said there, Joe, not changing anything in the front line with Tariq George and saying, right, let's swap around with Neto or whoever. It just felt actually bizarre that we didn't do it. Obviously, in hindsight, you win the game, so, he can move on. But I think if we hadn't, I'd have had so many question marks about that. And absolutely, I don't think we'll see that against Forest. It'll be different. I imagine if it's the same... Well, I imagine Lavia will probably come into the team, if I'm guessing, to be honest. And I think you might see Enzo as a 10, and it'll be moved around a little bit, but we'll see. I talked about Cucurella briefly, and obviously that redemption arc. I think it bears repeating just to say
what a brilliant player he's become for Chelsea. What a brilliant character to connect with the fans that he's become. I think he's, right up there with one of the absolute Chelsea fan favourites. He's our top scorer in the league in 2025, which is insane. He scored 5 goals, and just about all of them have been important. No more so than yesterday, but he's come up time and time again with real kind of clutch moments for us. And he's just a very, very likeable guy, I think, when he's your player. But actually, even a couple of my mates who are opposition fans sort of hate him. But I've actually said to them, I get that because he's a bit of a wind-up merchant on the pitch. But if you actually get to see what he's like off the pitch, he seems like a really good guy. Like, as you say, a real family guy, a good character, good fun. And I think his kind of on-pitch antics are just part of his makeup, really. But yeah, he was brilliant. And then the other man obviously involved in that one real bit of magic in the whole game was Reece James. And what really, I think, struck me yesterday, watching him close up, was his passion. When you watched it late in the game, when we were obviously time wasting in the corner just in front of us, he was getting the fans up time and time again. Every time we were, keeping the ball in the corner, winning another corner, he was going absolutely crazy. His reaction at the final whistle was wild, probably the wildest of anyone. And I thought, I don't know, he really encaptured. You can sort of see these sort of 2 years plus of frustration in him coming out. He's now been fit for the best part of 6 months, hasn't he? And we're almost taking it not for granted, but it still feels like you can't celebrate it yet because you're always worried about him. He obviously missed training this week because he was ill. And you're like, oh no, has he got injured again? But luckily not. And it was a really, really great moment for him, I think, that goal, because I'm a little worried about him. Not that he isn't a brilliant player, but has he lost that half a yard that he had? And is he having to change it? He's going to have to learn to change his game a little bit. The Premier League is so physical now. It's such a league for athletes. It's really, really, we were talking before the game about Ben Chilwell at Palace and how we're a bit surprised that he hasn't just gone in there and been, number one starter for them because we know how good he is. And we were saying that I think the Premier League, again, because it's so physical, I think if you even lose, 10% of what you have physically and you're out for a couple of years, the game is moving on so quickly that you could get left behind. I think with Reece, he's so good technically that he can and is sort of changing his game. And I really hope that he can become a key part of the Chelsea team going forward, because we all love him. And when you see what he did yesterday, there really aren't many players in the Premier League who could do what he did for that goal. The little pirouette, beautiful cross, and obviously a great header from Cucurella, and also obviously that shot he hit in the first half, which was, so unlucky and unreal. And he just has those moments where you think, yeah, he needs to be on the pitch at Forest, in my opinion, in terms of starting lineup. And maybe while we're talking about, maybe I would do that. So my team for Forest would be obviously Sanchez in goal. A shout for Sanchez again. To be fair, he made a big save at 1-0, a good save down at his near post. I think it was the only shot that United had on target, I think, which again, despite us not playing very well, is a credit to Maresca. And it's gone a little bit under the radar how good Chelsea have been defensively since Brighton, since that disaster 3-0 at Brighton. I think we've conceded 7 goals in 11 games. We've really locked it up, and credit to Maresca for that, and credit to Sanchez, to be fair, who has been part of that. And obviously at home, our home record that has kind of accompanied that has been brilliant. There's been plenty of 1-0s in this run. You beat Spurs 1-0, you beat Everton 1-0, Man United 1-0, beat Leicester 1-0 as well, didn't we, in this run? And if we look back and we do get Champions League, you'll look at those games and think that was the key, and it was really down to really being solid at the back and obviously having clutch moments to get the goals. So yeah, Sanchez in goal. I'd have Reece James right back. I'd bring Chalobah back in undoubtedly alongside Colwell for all the reasons you said, Joe. And I was a bit surprised he didn't play yesterday. Obviously, Cucurella left back. I'd then have Lavia and Caicedo in together with, I think, Enzo at 10. And I think I'd put Palmer as the false 9 with, I guess with Neto and Madueke. And then you've got Sancho and Tariq on the bench if you go that way. That's what I would go with. I think control the game away from home is so important, and Lavia gives you that. And actually, just having Palmer a bit further forward and trying to get him into a bit more shooting positions, I think is the way I would go. But yeah, you could also argue I'd want to see a bit more rotation, to be fair, than we saw yesterday. So if you're doing that, I'd want to see Neto and Palmer switching things up a lot more. Madueke likewise. But yes, a couple other final comments from me to wrap up the podcast. One was the atmosphere. And I think for any match-going fans who are listening can probably relate to this. And it's something that you're seeing across the Premier League. And maybe we'll do more of a detailed episode on this in the future. But atmospheres are changing in Premier League stadiums. I've had my seat in the Matthew Harding Upper since 97. So there's the same seat. It's been pretty much the same. There's a group of 10 of us that will sit together. I've had the seats for since then. God, it's nearly 30 years, isn't it? And I've never noticed more of a change in the people going to games at Stamford Bridge than I noticed it last night. Obviously, it's a Friday night game against Man United, and walking into the ground, I would estimate it felt like about 20 to 25% of the people were tourists. Half and half scarves. They're, maybe Chelsea, but fairly neutral, lots of photos, all that kind of stuff. And absolutely nothing wrong with that. I was sort of saying if I go to Barcelona, I probably want to go to the Barcelona game. Or if I'm in the US, I'll go and watch a US sports game. So it is the nature of entertainment, it's the nature of sport, but it is the reason that atmospheres are suffering, and why, if you look at the game yesterday, the last 20 minutes, once we scored, it was fantastic. It was brilliant. And Stamford Bridge came alive. For the first 70 minutes, to be fair, it was really bad. It was really quiet. And you almost had this sort of mixture between, I guess, fans who've just been around a long time and are still frustrated with what they're seeing, and this general kind of almost disharmony, I guess, with what's going on. And then a lot of tourists, a lot of people who are there just for a day out and to probably see Chelsea, be at Stamford Bridge, and see Man United as well. So it was really interesting. And I know that speaking to Spurs fans have a very similar feeling about their stadium. There's a huge number of tourists going to those games. And even someone like Liverpool, which kind of was always felt a little bit exempt from this. But I'm hearing from other people that the COP is now very similar. So you'll have 20% of the people going there are there to have a day out, wouldn't be able to say they sort of sat in the COP. So it's changing. It's changing, and I don't see that reversing. So I think the stuff that is being done by supporters groups, and we'd love to get a couple on, I think, in a future episode, and talking about singing sections that we've seen in the shed and all these kind of things, I think is more important than ever, because the days of all four stands, almost to a man, singing together, and it's just, don't think it's going to come back, because frankly, most of these people don't know the songs, and they're not necessarily Chelsea fans. So you're going to need to really sort of focus in on where the atmosphere comes from, which is a shame, but I guess it's the nature of change, isn't it? It's the nature of change. I'll finish there by saying, thank God Mason Mount didn't score that chance at 0-0. That would have been horrific. He got a terrible reception. It probably was the liveliest part of the atmosphere, actually, 0-0. And those post-match scenes, watched them again this morning, were absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I've said it many times, but it's so important for this group to get Champions League. And you can just see a growing unity that if we get through this together, the fans and the players, I think it will really, really help us. Yeah, big week to come. Let's hope we can get over the line.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.